Hello, world. This is Overtime with Terrence and Leon, a WRBI original production presented by Bruns Gutzwiller. Choose Bruns Gutzwiller for your next construction project. Also being brought to you by FCN Bank. FCN Bank, building stronger communities. Member FDIC. Leon, we have been celebrating women's basketball, 50 years of women's basketball in the state of Indiana. You could not have that conversation about women's basketball in the state of Indiana without mentioning our next guest.
Man, you know, it's really funny. I never told her this all the times I've been reaching out to her to talk about different things or ask about different things. But I remember when I think I was in college or right after, I remember a really good female basketball player from Indiana who everybody was talking about in Kentucky. And I was like, she went to Tennessee. And now it finally hit me that this is the person I was talking about all that time. So we are so glad to have you, April.
Thanks for having me, y'all. I appreciate you having me on.
Let's walk through some of this. It's just so much. And I guess we'll just start just on the big global picture. When I say to you, they're celebrating 50 years of women's basketball in the state of Indiana right off the top. What does that even say to you? What does that mean to you?
Wow. The word that comes to mind is just grateful. I mean, the trailblazers that have gone before me to give me an opportunity as a little girl growing up in Connorsville, Indiana. You know, I wouldn't even had an opportunity to do the things I was fortunate to do and play for, you know, head coach Pat Summitt and travel the world and make a career out of it. I mean, I'm just super grateful for the trailblazers that went before me.
You played your high school ball in one of the more historic arenas in the state of Indiana. What do you remember most about playing in the Spartan Bowl?
The Spartan Bowl. Oh, what a special place. I mean, I remember growing up as a little girl going to camps and looking at those state banners that were like humongous that hung on one end of the bowl. And gosh, I just remember it rocking every Friday night when we were playing. And even they come out to see girls basketball. I mean, it was the thing to do in town, you know, 5,000 people. And oh man, that was a dream to play in, and it prepared me for the next step and the next step. I mean, now I would then, you know, going to Tennessee and having the opportunity to play in front of then 17,000. I wasn't rattled by the number of people because of where I grew up and the environment in which I played, and so yeah, there's nothing like the Spartan Bowl.
Well, April, there are two Connorsville graduates that have been all over my case about having somebody from Connorsville on the show. Do you remember the name J.B. Showalter and Jake Geesting?
Of course I do. Yes.
Well, they are all
JB.
Over me. So you got to get April. You got to get
now.
April. And I said, man, we're trying to figure it out.
Yes. I love JB's. I was actually best friends with his sister growing up. So I knew the family really well. And they obviously both played. And so, yeah, they're a great family.
Yeah. So, when you think about, I mean, your accomplishments at Connorsville, what do you, I know we talked about the Spartan Bowl, but I mean, you got the all-time record for points, assists, steals, field goals, 3-point field goals. What would you say was the most special thing about playing at Connorsville?
I think my teammates. I mean, I think the relationships you build in sports, we wouldn't see each other for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, and then we just pick up right where we left off. That's what sports does. I mean, when you go through adversity with people, and you're in the foxhole with them, like you just have that connection that I don't think other things bring you. That connection that sports gives you, and so just enjoying that time with my teammates. I remember caravans going from Connorsville to Newcastle, and I mean, just how sports brings people together. That's what I remember the most.
What is it when you look at you as Miss Basketball? Okay, we talked to Alex Smith, who was the first Mr. Football from Franklin County. But when you think about, I was Miss Basketball, what does that mean to you?
That means I had some great teammates along with me. You know, you don't achieve an honor like that, and that's just opinion of other people, unless you have success as a team. And we had some really good players that went on to play in college as well. And so all that means is we worked really hard and we had a lot of team success. Never got the state championship. Came really close. I know that's going to come up, so I'll just bring it up. No, never won one. Would have much rather traded the Miss Basketball for a state championship any day. But we played against some obviously great competition in Indiana. I was kind of in between one class system and then 2 years with the 4-class system. So I kind of had a taste of both.
When you think back to high school, who would you say, and Terrence says this all the time, who was the opponent and the person that you always had circled on the schedule? And you're like, I cannot lose to her.
I think it depends on the year. I know Martinsville had our number in the semis. That was double, that was a close game. Kenitra Johnson went to Connecticut. That would probably be the game because she went to Connecticut. I went to Tennessee. It was kind of that rivalry already in high school. And she was a fantastic player who won it that year, our senior year. We lost in double overtime. Emily Butler comes to mind with Center Grove. Katie Douglas, Perry Meridian, Lisa Shepard at Richmond. There's a lot of rivalries, we had some good players, good talented athletes. So there's a lot of circles on my calendar.
I love it.
So when you talk about some of these great players, your Miss Basketball, that was 99, right?
Right.
Who were give me some of the names of your teammates that also played with you on that team?
Mm-hmm. My senior year, we had, the ones that went on to play, I hope I don't forget anybody. This is tough. I'm a little bit older than a nice spring chicken coming out of high school.
You're still young. You're still young.
If I miss somebody, but I know Andrea King went on to play college athletics, volleyball. Shayna Sparks, who's the coach at Connorsville now, went on to play at Indiana State. Beth Windhorst. There's quite a few that played after our high school seasons. But yeah, we got after it and we enjoyed playing together. Those are the three that I remember the most, is probably Shayna, Andrea, Beth Windhorst. That was kind of Missy Taylor was a little freshman when I was a senior, and she went on to play. So there's quite a few that came through that come to mind.
So let's move on from Connorsville and let's go down to UT. During those years, of course, with Pat Summitt, I would say it was probably an easy decision to go to UT. But walk us through that process, your recruiting process. Was UT always the top of your list?
It was, because at the time they had won 3 back-to-back national titles, and they were the best. And so I wanted to become the best. So I wanted to play for the best. And the minute I was offered a scholarship, and I basically said, yes, sign me up. Sign me up. I want to go do some of that. And I want to learn.
You didn't do it sight unseen, did you?
No. I had went to camps and played in their little all-star camp games and played with the current players. So I was very familiar with Pat and her program. And now it wasn't the easiest. Now, fast forward, you're actually on the team. And
right.
I remember having a film session with Pat Summitt every single day before practice, because I was a point guard. And so one-on-one film session, and it was not nice. It wasn't fun most of the time.
Oh,
wow. She was preparing me,
So she did it just with you, the point guard.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Those are times that,
So talk about that a little bit. I mean, you said it yourself that you had the privilege to be coached by one of the game's all-time greats in Pat Summitt. What do you take from that experience?
I think what I try to take with me now as a coach is her passion and intensity. It's unmatched, and her care for you becoming better and pushing whatever buttons she feels like she needs to push. Um, and I have my own philosophy of that because I lived that, and I think that understanding your players and how they're wired is very important. They actually did. This is interesting. They did a personality assessment. They brought this third party in because Coach Summit couldn't relate to any other personality type than herself. And so for me as a point guard, I'm just like taking all of it in and like, this is super helpful. And because she's fiery, she's kind of the Bob Knight of women's basketball at the time. She didn't like hearing that. I asked her about it. She didn't agree with that assessment. But, obviously she's done so much for the game. I'm so grateful to have played for her. And now I can handle adversity, and I'm tough because of her, because she made me that way. And I had to go through that and not care how the message is being given, but just hearing the message. And, it took a while for a little 18-year-old who looked up to the god of women's basketball, but eventually I got it and I'm better for it. And so, but yeah, those film sessions weren't always the most fun thing to do, but
so
grateful for them now.
So do you do one-on-one film sessions with your point guard?
I do. I tame it down a little bit because I know how it feels in those shoes.
Right.
But yeah, I do try to bring that passion and intensity, and hopefully the players that I coach know that I care deeply for them, and this is why I'm so passionate about certain things. But yeah, I try to take the good.
April, tell us. I mean, since it's such a storied program, tell our listeners about some of the girls that were on the Tennessee rosters that you played with.
So Tamika Catchings, she made me a great passer. She caught every ball, basically. Kara Lawson, the head coach of Duke, was a teammate for 3 years. Samika Randall, the head coach of Winthrop. Kyra Elzy, also at Duke now, was at Kentucky for a while. Those are the ones that come to mind that people would probably know.
Yeah. So you go from Tennessee to UC Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
What was the decision there? What was that about?
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit. It wasn't playing time related. I played about 20 minutes, 25 minutes my entire career at Tennessee, like every year. So it wasn't necessarily a playing time type thing. And that's back when no one transferred. Let's be clear, like everyone transfers now. This was a very abnormal thing because I had started and played, and we went to the national championship, had lost to UConn that year. And I just felt called to move on. I felt like it wasn't a healthy spot for me. And I knew I wanted to get into coaching. I wanted to see how it could be done maybe a little differently. And so I felt strongly, and my faith is real important to me. I felt strongly that the Lord was calling me to leave. They were fine. They get All-Americans every year. It wasn't like I was leaving them hanging to dry. They were fine. But I just felt like it was just something I was called to. And so I went to Santa Barbara, and I was a big fish in a little pond, but it's very different. No one really cared that I play. In fact, I got kicked out of the gym the first day at Santa Barbara. They didn't know who I was. And I loved it though. It was like so refreshing to me. And I fell back in love with the game again, and stayed on. And we actually went to the Sweet 16, and we had a good little crew. We lost to UConn by 8 points on their home floor my senior year. So, just super thankful for that experience. And I learned a lot about, what was actually really good at Tennessee, and I couldn't see when I was in the moment. And also how it could be done differently. There's a lot of different ways to coach, and you have to be you and be where your feet are. And I kind of learned that at Santa Barbara. I stayed on to be an assistant and also play in the WNBA at the same time after I graduated. So it was, it was a great learning experience for me.
What
in
was
the
it
W,
about?
where did you play in the W?
I was in New York the first year, Minnesota, and then Washington my third year, and then injuries kind of had to make a decision to go
Sure.
overseas or go into coaching, and so decided coaching at that point. Yeah.
So April, at the time, you going to Tennessee or anybody going to Tennessee was normal. It didn't matter where you came from. But now Indiana, their program with Terry Moore, and they're starting to get all the players. What do you think it is that she's doing she's able to keep players in state?
Yeah, I'm super happy for Terry. I knew it was just a sleeping giant. It wasn't quite there when I was going through in terms of turning the women's side to IU basketball on. But because Indiana native, they love winning. They love winners. They'll get behind winners. And so I think Allie Patberg was a key player in that equation. It kind of turned the head. She transferred from Notre Dame. I was able to train her when she was in high school, and just a great player, now great coach, high IQ, and she was a recruiter. And so she, from day one, she started recruiting some teammates. And so I think she really turned the program around, honestly, a lot. Obviously, Terry's doing a great job, but in terms of players, I think Allie was the key piece to that.
When you look at college basketball now, how is it different now? If you said I can put my thumb on this and tell you this is how it's different, what's the difference now compared to when you played in college?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the game's more positionless. When I was in college, it was, you were a point guard and you distributed, and you're not a points guard necessarily in college. You were very much in this is your role. I feel like now it's more free flowing, and I think the NBA and the influence of the W, because they all want to go on now and play in the W. It's influenced the game. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference is the players are more skilled in every position, and they have more freedom. They may have been just as skilled, but they didn't have the freedom to just go and play and use their gifts as much as they do now.
Yeah. So before we leave your player history and start talking about coaching a little bit, I want you to reflect with me for a moment, if you would. Playing at Connorsville, playing at Tennessee, playing at Santa Barbara, playing in the W. When you look at that as a collective whole, what time do you remember, or what time are you most fond of as a player?
Gosh. I think two things. I have two ones that stick out are playing in a packed out Spartan Bowl where there's not a seat, they sell out, and just being with my high school teammates, girls basketball in 1999, 98, that was something special. I mean, we felt important, we felt valued. And at the time, that wasn't necessarily the case for a lot of girls basketball players in the nation. And so I felt like that's a really special time. And also playing, any UConn game, UConn, Tennessee, that was a blast.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and the energy and the excitement around it. And it felt similar to what I was talking about at Connorsville. And on a national scale, it was important when we played. ESPN paid attention. Other, outside people who weren't women's basketball fans paid attention. And so you felt valued. And now I feel like the needle has been moving and moving and moving. And I'm so grateful for where the game is now in terms of women athletes being valued like they should. So excited to where it's going.
April, let me ask you a question. Terrence and I have talked about this before. When we talk about Tennessee's dominance, then UConn's dominance. How in the world did Gino start getting girls to go to Connecticut to play basketball?
That's true.
I mean, when you were at Tennessee, were you thinking, why are those girls going to Connecticut?
Yeah, I mean, Yes, I've been there, believe me. And I still wonder that. No, I get it now. He's built an empire there, and have so much respect for him. But yeah, Bristol, Connecticut's not necessarily a vacation spot for many, would be my
Yes.
guess. And he valued women though, like he
Yeah.
built it from that standpoint. And so the great players want to, they want to be appreciated, and he kind of did that. He was he was beyond his years in terms of like just caring about women athletes, like they're athletes, not just women, but they're athletes first. And so like he gave them respect that I think many didn't at the time. And yeah.
So this is the interesting question for me is, you were at Tennessee. Did you all as a program think, okay, this group is coming to become, it's almost like they transitioned, the power went to them versus Tennessee. Could you feel the shift?
I mean, yeah, definitely the parity. They, with Diana Taurasi, who was always my matchup, and Sue Bird. Like looking back at the time, I'm like, oh, they're pretty good players. Now look at them. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I had a tough matchup.
Yeah.
I'm trying to check Sue Bird, and then if not Sue, is Diana, and I'm like, my goodness. Yeah, you could kind of feel the shift. I mean, you're in the moment, so you don't really view it like that then. But yeah, I mean, they caught a couple on us, and then just kept the with Breanna Stewart, and they just kept coming. So a little bit. I think that was right about the time when a few years later, Pat became diagnosed with dementia and early onset dementia. And so I think that who knows when that actually started affecting her coaching. I know those close to the program, and the fact that she lasted as long as she did is shocking. I mean, it is and it isn't if you know her, but because she's pretty tough and stubborn, and she can fight through any kind of adversity. But I just wonder when that actually started impacting her coaching. And it takes time to figure it out. After a legend goes down now, how do you replace that? You don't.
Sure.
And you just kind of have to have a new normal and figure out. I think they're having a great year this year, which go Lady Vols. I'm still a fan. Many blood and sweat on that court. So yeah, I'm excited for what they can, do now in the future. And they've got, a better, they're having a great start. So.
Bruins Guts Willer is the right choice for your next construction project. We strive to deliver unparalleled service to our clients by focusing on craftsmanship and quality. Our core values of integrity, professionalism, and fair pricing all but ensures our clients receive the best possible experience. Whether it's commercial construction, remodeling an existing space, or even building a luxurious home, we offer a comprehensive suite of construction management services. So before you break ground, give us a call at 812-934-2105. Bruins Guts Willer, building a better future for Southeastern Indiana for over 100 years.
Leon, one of the things that I like most about working and living in Batesville, it's the community. Batesville has a little something for everyone, and FCN Bank is the exact same way. Whether it's my personal or business needs, FCN offered me an array of banking products and services that would fit my every banking need. Don't take my word for it. You should check it out yourself at www.fcnbank.com. FCN Bank, building stronger communities. Member FDIC.
So April, you had success at Connersville, you had success at Tennessee, and you had success at UC Santa Barbara. Having two girls, do they play basketball?
They sure do.
So how often do they get reminded of how good their mom was?
I try to let other people talk about that, but they do know that if they're not at a certain level of intensity and passion, they just need to sit down because you're not respecting the game. But they actually do. They bring that. They're learning and falling in love with it. I think my older one likes it a little more than my younger one. They're 9 and 11, so they got a little bit of time to figure it out. But I coached their little club team, Sports Academy, Kobe's old place.
Yep.
Sports Academy Swish. So, yeah, we had some good games this weekend.
Good deal.
So, at what point, we ask this question of anybody on our pod that was successful at a high level, which you were. At what point in your life did you think, okay, I'm pretty good at this? You didn't have to say it, but in your mind you thought, okay, this is different. What I'm doing is really different.
I think it started pretty young for me, just because I played, my dad coached me when I was in first grade playing against boys. And as my skills got better, I felt like I really love this game. Like, I felt like the love, I guess, is what I speak to, of just really enjoying the process. Because if kids they don't love the process of getting better, then eventually it won't happen for them.
Right.
Because if you're not in love with the process of just going by yourself and shooting and with an intensity that helps you get better, then it's eventually people will catch up to you. And so I think at a very early, now it was like work on the farm or go play hoops. Like, I didn't have the distractions that people have today. I didn't have an iPad to look at or an option to do something else. So, who knows what I would have decided if I had those other distractions that kids have to kind of fight through today. But yeah, I felt like at a young age, I fell in love with it. Kind of an aha moment was when I was, playing in front of 17,000 people at Tennessee. It was like, okay, this was the moment where I've worked all my life up to this moment. Now what? So that was kind of an aha moment for me.
Okay. So I got to ask you, what was your record in the Indiana-Kentucky All-Star game?
2-0. We did it. We got the sweep. Come on.
I just had to put it out there. I was like, I didn't put this one up.
That's probably the only record I know too.
So who was on the Kentucky team?
I couldn't tell you.
A bunch of nobody.
That answers the question right there.
A bunch of nobody.
You must have beat him on a down year.
Maybe.
Okay, April, you talked about a couple of stops in the W, and you felt like coaching was going to be the next frontier for you. Talk to us a little bit about that transition, going from player to coach.
Yeah, I did it pretty quickly, actually, because right when I graduated, I played in the W that summer, and then in the winter, I was at Santa Barbara as an assistant. So that very next year, I was an assistant coaching my teammates, basically, that I had just played with, some of them. So I think, you're a point guard, so that position naturally just feeds into being a coach. I think understanding you have to tell everybody else where to go and where to be. And so it was a natural transition for me. I did, learned a lot along the way. Was fortunate to be around some great teachers. Again, I visited with John Wooden many times. Corey Close, who's the head coach at UCLA, having a pretty good year herself, undefeated. And, my husband, Ed Schilling, who's one of the best skill development, I think, in the game. We have conversations all the time, and his coaching tree and how he's learned from 5-star. So our coaching tree, I feel so fortunate that has been so deep and wide in terms of like just gathering information and understanding and learning from different people and different ways of doing things. I've just been so grateful. And I continue to learn. I feel like you have to continue to be sharp and continue to learn. My hope is to be a head coach someday in the W or in college. And so I stayed at home with my girls when they were young because I felt like that was, most important for me. You don't get that time back with them, and I would do it all over again. But then now they're getting older and they're in school. And so I have more flexibility of, looking at different opportunities now. And so, open to what's next and excited to see where we might go.
Okay, so as a coach, I got to ask you, you said you were intense. Are you Kim Mulkey intense?
No,
or are you Don Staley intense?
Don't say that sentence, please. My name in it. No.
Ooh.
Go ahead, finish your sentence.
No, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on now. Hold on.
I was saying, is it Kim Mulkey or is it Don Staley? Because Don sits there like she's Phil Jackson and she just kind of watches.
Yeah.
It's amazing the control Dawn has and what she does with that. I mean, it is, man. And you talk about a coach that adapts the way she plays to her players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before everybody talked about they played bully ball and they kind of mucked it up. Mm-hmm. Now they're shooting a bunch of threes all the time. So it's pretty cool to see how she's evolved.
It is. Yeah. She has a brand new roster every year. So she has different advantages. I don't know how I would compare myself to those two. I mean, they're obviously great in their own right. They've won a lot of games, but at the expense of I'm not talking about Dawn at all.
Just leave it alone.
Let's switch it up. Let me ask you this. If you had to compare your style to a notable coach, who would you most closely compare your style to?
Okay. I've never been asked that question. I feel like if you don't bring your whole self to it, then I don't know if I could compare. Not that I'm anything great, but I feel like I've had, some great coaches along the way. And I don't know if there's just like one person that I would say, that's my style. I feel like I'm Coach April. And so I feel like I'll take a little bit of Pat Summitt. I'll take a little bit of Corey Close because she coached me in college for 1 year. Mary Ann Stanley, who's a Hall of Famer with the Indiana Fever. I take so I take pieces of everyone that I've been fortunate to be around into that room, in the locker room. I feel like, one of the things I hang my hat on is being where your feet are and being your authentic self. And so I do want to take the good and then, discern the not so good maybe that I've experienced or that I've seen and kind of just help build young people and build up players into great champions and great performers and help them be where I've been and hopefully catapult them to the top. So my heart is to just help these players. Basketball's given me a lot, so my job is to give back to the game that's given so much to me.
Leon touched on this a little bit, April, and I find it extremely remarkable that you were successful in high school. You were successful in college at 2 stops. You've been successful at every thing that you've done, every step along the way. If you're talking to, let's say a middle school or a junior high, or even a high school freshman, what would you tell them would be the key to that? Your ability to be successful at every single stop.
I appreciate you saying that. I hope that they would see that I'm a successful mom and a successful human also. So that it parlays into sports is a small microcosm of life, I feel like. And so if you're successful in one area, it does spill into the next. And so what I would say to a freshman in high school that's looking to, earn a scholarship or play at the next level, I would say, fall in love with the process, because when the crowd's not there and the coach maybe even isn't there and you're just getting extra shots up, that's what you got to fall in love with, because that's what it takes to be great at anything, basketball, being a doctor, you name it, fill in the blank. You just got to fall in love with the process of learning and developing. And I feel like on social media, you can get all these, it can be a big distraction and a false narrative to what's really going on. And so to limit the social media intake for young people, I think is very important, because it's not the real story most of the time.
Yep.
And so if you can try to limit that and fall in love with the process, you'll be in great shape, no matter how it all shakes out.
April, I do have a question. How did you become an assistant coach for the Nigerian national team?
I mean, why is that a question?
I mean, that's just like, what? What's the connection here?
Well, I'm good friends with the head coach, and he was wanting a shooting coach to help their skill development. And so, I was free. I wasn't working at the time. I was just, doing my little club teams with my girls. And I thought, why not? Like, they just want to get better, and I'd love to help. And so, yeah, it was great. I love those girls. They work so dang hard, and it was a fun training camp, and they're continuing to fight through barriers that I know nothing about, and just super, super great opportunity for me just to be around them, honestly.
Well, that was a completely different experience than you had ever had. What do you take most from that experience?
I think valuing where the different journeys that people come from. I had my girls at the training camp, and so that is like, I would pay for that experience for my girls, to be around people who look different than them, have a different journey than them. I mean, that's what the world is. And so to give them that is such a gift. And so, and for me, obviously. And I just feel like we see the differences like on the outside a lot of times. And really we're all like, we all bleed red, we're all human beings. And so just trying to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand like their fight, because their fight's different than my fights. Being a woman, sure, but like being a woman of color, being, coming from a Nigeria, a lot of them, or their parents came from Nigeria, and just hearing their journey and their fight, it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it.
So was training camp in Nigeria?
No, it wasn't. It was in Vegas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
It was stateside. Yeah. And a lot of them are in college here. So it made sense,
That's pretty cool. Are you still in contact with some of them?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
Good deal. Well, April, listen, we really appreciate you taking the time out to kind of trot down memory lane with us here. And, with all this going on the West Coast, of course, hope and pray that you, the family, everybody's safe. Obviously, since we're having this conversation, I would assume so. But again, just really grateful to you for your time and just hanging out with us a little bit.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys celebrating these women. That's awesome.
I'm just happy I finally got to talk to the person I text all the time.
That's true. Amen.
Well, listen, we end this show, April, the same way every single week. We call it our one hitter quitter. That's where I'm going to ask you one question, hard hitting in nature. And yes, you have to answer. Okay. Here we go.
She's not saying okay.
Oh boy.
Here we go. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. She finished her first season this past season, set the world on fire. Now with a new head coach, will the Indiana Fever have more wins this year than last year?
That's easy.
I know. I went soft on you, right?
They're going to win it.
They
just killed free agency. They're going to win it.
They're going to win it all.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, wait. I want to make
sure. Hold on. You're being serious.
Oh, absolutely.
The Indiana Fever will hoist up the trophy at the end of the season?
Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. There are great super teams out there, from Vegas to now Phoenix, and obviously New York's going to defend their title, but my money's on the Fever this year. Absolutely. And
I like
the
that.
GM Amber Cox killed the GM Amber Cox killed free agency. I mean, she got veterans in the locker room. Now they got youth and veteran and buckets and low posts. I mean,
well, I couldn't.
What's their weakness? Tell me their weakness.
I couldn't believe she got forgot her last name, but Natasha
Howard
and Bonner. I was like, whoa.
Bonner's big at 3-and-D. She's so long.
Because Bonner was one. She was one of the only people that gave Caitlin Clark problems on defense.
With her length, right?
Yep.
Leon,
It'll
be a fun year though.
Chest. She
What's
said
that?
it with her. I said, you said that with your whole chest. You said Fever gonna win it all.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, I could be wrong, but
I ain't mad at you. Not mad at you. Good deal. Well, again, April, thank you so much. Wish you, your family, all the success in the world, and look forward to seeing what you guys do.
All right. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this one. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible. They include Bronze Gutzwiller, the right choice for your next construction project, and FCN Bank, building stronger communities, member FDIC. Also, we'd like to thank our friends of the program. They include Margaret Mary Health, S&B Driving School, and Country 103.9 WRBI. And as always, subscribe, like, rate, and review. And remember, be a friend and tell a friend about Overtime with Terrence and Leon.